Max Dowman looks to be the next player up. When I say the next player up, I don't mean in a few years. I think this 15-year-old kid that has spawned in at Arsenal Football Club looks to be the real deal that can compete at the highest level in the senior game very soon, this season, I mean. And we've just seen a massively impressive cameo from him against Newcastle. And I know it's only pre-season and you can't take too much away from pre-season games in general, but Max Dowman's performance at 15 years old against senior professionals, alongside senior professionals, against a team as physically as impressive as Newcastle are, was absolutely incredible. And social media has been set alight kind of tonight and then throughout the day by this performance. I want to talk a little bit about it, but I also want to rewatch it with you guys so I can talk through my opinions and highlight a few things that you might have missed with regards to Max Dowman's performance and kind of where I project him going and where he might fit in this Arsenal side, because I mean, an absolutely wonderful performance, genuinely really, really impressive. And I know by watching this alongside myself, if you didn't watch the game, you're going to echo those sentiments because he really stands out. 15 years old, I mean, that's crazy. You think back to, or you think of people that are 15, little siblings or cousins or family members, whoever. And yeah, it puts it into perspective just how crazy a feat this performance and the skill set that he has showcased in training and in some of the youth setups has been. He's one of the best young players I've ever seen. So we begin by looking at when he does come on, and he comes on in the 60th minute. It was interesting because it looks like he's getting more minutes than some of the other youth players, at least in this preseason tournament. But he comes on at the 60th minute mark, and I think it's always important to look at game state when you're analysing and when you're trying to get a feel for what a player and what their quality is like. And often in sort of a drawing game state that's not 0-0, when the game's there to be won, you can almost get players who play a little bit within themselves. They don't want to take that risk because they don't want to make the mistake that loses a team the game. And you'll see in this rewatch of his performance today, but he doesn't shy away from kind of taking responsibility and wanting to be the winner in neutral game states like this. He doesn't shy away, and it's such a big positive, the fact that he doesn't hide from the ball. He wants to get in the ball, he wants to make things happen, and he's not scared, even though he's only a young player at 15 years old. So we'll move it on a touch here, and look, there's so much to first notice about his game, but I think the initial driving power in his game is really impressive. And whenever you talk about young superstar players in the past, you normally associate them with supreme technical ability, the ability to kind of shoot from distance, the ability to pick wonderful passes. You think about the real young wonder kids that have kind of gone viral in the past. Odegaard, obviously, interestingly, was one of those, and he had massive hype from 15, 16 years old. Xavi Simons is another one. And they're kind of based on that technical quality that they show at very young youth levels. Obviously, you need to be physical to stand out even at those levels. But Max Dowman, in my opinion, kind of has an equal and incredible balance between the physical traits that he does possess, but also the technical quality. So we see him with that driving quality. It's brilliant because he goes inwards immediately, and the first thing that does is it kind of gets your body between the ball and the opposition defender, and it tends to draw fouls if the opposition player does engage. And if he doesn't engage, then you're kind of running directly towards goal, forcing the opposition defenders to kind of make a decision, and also kind of disrupting the opposition's back line and their shape in general. And you can see how, we'll move it back a touch here, that really powerful, really aggressive, really direct running towards the middle kind of freezes up one player. It drags three players in and around him. And then it's also the really nice running movement across. Is that Declan Rice? It might be Declan Rice. That then frees up Max Dowman to get a shot away, which, look, the way he's coming across goal, the pace that he's run all the way to the edge of the box with, he gets a fair, decent bit of power that forces a corner and needs to be parried despite running at that speed. And I know I'm playing it in 0.5 here, kind of talk through a little bit of what I'm thinking watching this, but good ball carrying, great driving power, really direct and brave in the way and the areas that he's driving into. Good sharp power when he's not relatively on balance as well. And he's also seeing and taking advantage of the space that's been made available by Declan Rice's movement across his eye line and bringing the other defenders away from him. So, look, that's one example already, and you can kind of see the quality on show. The fact that he's able to power past and draw defenders in, but get past them. When it's senior defenders, when it's senior footballers, and he's only 15 years old, I can't stress just how impressive that is. But we'll move on a touch here. Receives on the back foot, his second touch, fluid, that motion, that sort of 1-2 footed motion where he receives the ball and then he's going in the direction where he wants to go in very smoothly, very seamlessly. Reminds me of kind of the Spanish players, but the great young Jack Wilshere in his peak before injuries kind of got to him, did the same thing. So he's immediately moved onto the front foot. Look at that. He gets fouled. And Joe Linton, he's not an easy opponent to face against by any stretch of the imagination. It's interesting that this is the game that Max Dowman was so impressive in, because for me, Newcastle have been a team that have given Arsenal problems historically for the last 2-3 years for sure. Their mid-block, their intensity in how they defend, they force you to play the game almost at their own terms, and they don't let Arsenal kind of play their own game, which is a slower, more methodical game that pins teams deeper and then allows them to kind of figure out how to break them down. They force them to kind of play in unfavourable positions, kind of like the position that we see here, the big, slightly bigger spaces in the middle of the pitch. That middle third is paramount against this Newcastle side, and their midfielders have always been very strong, athletic, aggressive. And look, Joe Linton certainly, typifies all of that more than anybody else. But the fact that he was so aggressive against Max Dowman, and Max Dowman didn't kind of shy it away rather, but he kind of took it in his stride and kept going, was a brilliant thing to see. And he almost changed his direction. I think this will be a better example of it. But look, he draws him in, and then look, he changes direction and he sends Joe Linton completely the other way. And this is also whilst he's driving at a bit of pace into big space in general. And then he's kind of pulled down by the arm of Joe Linton, which is sort of the biggest foul that you could see. This is another example kind of that reception and in terms of how he does control the ball. Again, right-footed, he's naturally a left-footed player, but he's comfortable receiving on his right foot. He doesn't go into the area where he might be in trouble. He kind of uses that right foot to feint and bring it back inside, almost like a Tony Cruz or a Thiago Alcantara might, with those deceptive first touches, and then the ball gets out of his feet. He freezes the defender up almost in like the same way the best wingers do. Bukayo Saka, Lamine Yamal, Olise, he kind of has that probing motion. Bernardo Silva, for example. And there's kind of two players there around him. But he's in the box, he's between the lines, and he's comfortable receiving between the lines, which is a really impressive quality. For as good as I think Martin Odegaard is, sometimes he shies away from receiving in these areas and then being aggressive and proactive after the fact. And I'm not saying Max Dowman's better than Odegaard right now or anything like that, but they give you different qualities, and I'm just using them as comparative examples because they kind of play, or they are playing in the same zones. When you're looking at Max Dowman playing in here, brilliant. That right there, I just want to highlight it in particular because Max Dowman's ability to slow the game down is such a high level, senior, intelligent kind of maneuver. I'm going to bring it back a touch actually, just so you can see it in full flow. But when he receives the ball, the game's speeding up a little bit. He's pushing the defensive line back, but then he slows it down completely, freezes the defense, and then allows his other teammate to kind of get involved before releasing that pass. And that freezing motion, pauser, is what the Spanish term it, changes the picture of the game, and it opens up spaces in the opposition's defensive shape, and that's how you unlock a defense. So the fact that he's showing traits of being able to slow the game down and not play at the same pace throughout the game is such an impressive quality for a player that young, in my opinion. And then look, we'll move on to the next example. Good dueling quality to get involved. You're dispossessing senior professionals, and then he utilizes his body there again to draw fouls. And there's a lot of clips in this rewatch that kind of show him getting fouled. Now, I don't think he's somebody who baits fouls on purpose. He's not trying to win fouls. He is tenacious. He likes going at defenders, and he'll continue to go at defenders. But given the nature of his game, given his agility and the quick changes of direction that he can execute, then he's naturally going to be the target of a lot of fouls. And obviously this is no different. Or these examples are no different. And look, this is a brilliant, brilliant maneuver here, where he picks up, and his first instinct again is to drive at the heart of defense. His touches are quick, but he never looks like he's out of control with the ball. He shifts it, he gets into that good zone to shoot from, that zone 14 zone, gets it out of his feet, and it's a good solid strike again. And look, he can perhaps work a little bit on his positioning of his shots and things, but for a player in such a young part of his career to have that reliability in terms of his ball striking quality, I mean, to me that's very impressive, that power that he gets behind it, because often you get really technical players, really good strong players who can't strike a ball, and that's kind of reserved for players who are, out and out nines. For him, he's not obviously an out-and-out nine, but his ball striking quality makes him a really solid option from the right wing coming in, or just as a number 10 who plays off of the striker and drops in situationally to get those shots away. But it's certainly one thing to keep an eye on as we follow Max Dowman's career in general. This, again, is a bit more Bernardo Silva-y, where he stands the defenders up, that willingness to get shots away. We've spoken about his quality when he does shoot, but the willingness to up his shot volume and try and force the issue is something that stands out to me, at least in this short cameo again. And that's a little bit of a different technique. He kind of tries to curl it a little bit, which shows the variety of his shooting technical quality. But obviously, there's going to be more examples as we watch more games of Max Dowman throughout his career. This is brilliant. This, I just want to highlight kind of as one of the standout clips, and I know it doesn't look like much when you just see it on first watch, but right there, that's a situation you're going to find yourself as a winger in time and time again. And the best wingers, that most proficient high-level wingers, especially for teams that keep a lot of the ball in high position sides, are wingers that are going to get the ball 2 feet with pressure on their back, facing away from the opposition's goal. You think about the top teams in the Premier League who dominate the ball, and the wingers that they've played, and they find themselves in this position often. Bukayo Saka's brilliant at it because he's got a great, strong ability to hold up play. Mohamed Salah has got a great hold-up quality because he resists pressure on his back, and then he passes it back to the teammates that he needs to pass it into. Jack Grealish in the treble-winning season for Manchester City did the exact same thing on the left wing for them. And this quality, to be able to resist pressure on your back, keep the ball, this is different quality. The fact that he turns and then drives forward, that's not always something. That's something that's actually very rare in wingers who have pressure on their back to kind of shift and turn. I think I've seen Lamine Yamal do it, and that's probably like the second time I've compared a couple of qualities that Max Dowman's had to Lamine Yamal. But given that they're both so young and so impressive, I don't think it's an outlandish immediate first player to kind of call and reference. But the fact is, he's resisted pressure on his back from a senior adult professional footballer at the highest level, a Premier League quality footballer, and then not only has he resisted that pressure and he's kept his own, but he's not passed it back. He's turned and he's driving, and he's suddenly turned that moment of pressure and a high chance of losing the ball or making the ball go back into a less dangerous situation, and he's turned it into a very dangerous sort of attacking direct situation. And you see him square up. That fullback is brilliant. He squares him up. He waits for the moment where he kind of overextends, and then there's that space inside where he cuts in and he goes. That quick second touch after the cut in is brilliant. You see it in the best wingers in world football. And then he's driving direct, head up. He looks who's in the box, nobody there. Very intelligently kind of holds his run. Again, that difference in tempo. He's not playing at one pace, sprinting like a headless chicken into areas where he doesn't know what he's going to do next. He knows Joe Linton's behind him. He knows that he can slow the pace down, have a little think, but also try and draw that contact, and he brilliantly wins a penalty there. I think you've got a player who has such a wonderful footballing brain, such a wonderful IQ. Look, he lifted his head there, and then he kind of feels and draws that contact and goes down brilliantly. Young players in the past that I know have been very successful and top quality haven't always had that know-how in terms of gamesmanship that it looks like Max Dowman has showcased in this cameo against Newcastle. After he does go down, Arsenal get a penalty and they end up winning the game 3-2 actually. And I think he was a linchpin and a centerpiece to a lot of that quality that Arsenal showed on the day. And he's certainly a really exciting player to watch. Just to finish my point actually about that gamesmanship, Phil Foden for me, one of the best young players I've ever seen come through the ranks in England, and he's somebody who was very reluctant to go down in the penalty box for many, many years. I still think he doesn't go down as often as he should when he feels contact, and that's because he kind of has the idea in his head that like, oh look, I should carry on playing. That's in my nature. I want to play, and I'm gonna, for the good of the game, keep playing. Football's a game about winning. Football's a game about using your brain and being smart and gamesmanship as much as it is the technical quality and the physical quality. And the fact that he's shown gamesmanship and IQ, he's shown technical quality, and he's shown the athleticism, that running power, that ability to cover large distances, and the mentality to be direct, aggressive, run towards the center of the pitch in his attacking quality. I mean, it's magnificent. I don't want to kind of put too much pressure on an individual player. I know I've made a whole sort of review and analysis video talking about him, and that will inevitably put pressure on him. But I think when you've got a player of this quality who has shown he can hang with the senior players at the highest level, then you have to integrate them and you have to talk about them, because these players don't come around very often. And hopefully he can be nurtured. Arsenal have a very good and stable environment, which is very beneficial. They've been very solid, almost as the second best team in England for the last few years. They've got a good core. They've got strong players in the positions that Max Dowman can play in as well. So it's not about him taking the burden and having to play every game all the time. But these sort of cameos like this and utilizing him as a specific tactical tool, even though he's only 15, as crazy as it sounds, perhaps when he gets to 16, 17, these are things that I think you can maximally utilize for the greater good of your team, because he's such a brilliant player. And I just hope that, you know, he's not made to do too much too soon. I hope that his career progresses as we think it could progress, because yeah, England would have a superstar on their hands, because he looks like an absolutely wonderful footballer at the moment. And to be honest, I'm just excited to see where and how he is utilized. Because yeah, it's not normal for a 15-year-old to be doing this. It's not normal for a 24 or 25-year-old footballer to be doing this. But let me know what you thought of the cameo. Do you like these sort of more live review type analysis videos? If you do, let me know, and I'll see if I can keep pushing forward with them. I think preseason a little bit easier to do so. But yeah, what do you think of Max Dowman? And yeah, how do you think he scales? Is he one of the best young footballers that you've ever seen? I know it's early, but who does he compare to? I'll catch you again in the next one.